You are now listening to The Pleasure Spot with Dr. Dom. Welcome to the first episode. Now, I know I created this podcast to speak specifically about relationships and intimacy, but I feel like it's important to start off thinking about what it means to love yourself. Loving yourself is often mentioned, but not really discussed. Every day I tell myself, colleagues, staff, and clients to make sure they get some rest and relaxation. But is this truly a window into creating self-love? When I meet with couples, I ask their history within their current and past relationships. This not only allows me the opportunity to learn who they are as an individual, but how they approach relationships. As I begin to explore their relationship history, I often sometimes start to notice patterns. This dreaded pattern is one that only involves serial dating. Are you asking yourself, what is serial dating? Or am I a serial dater? Well, serial dating means the person never really took time to rest, reflect, and identify their role in their previous failed relationship. They just go directly into another relationship without taking time to process and figure out what is important to them in a relationship. These are often the people who are either consciously or subconsciously afraid to be alone. So in an effort, whether it is purposeful or not, they hop into another relationship. What this does is carry all the emotional and mental baggage from one relationship to another, even though it is with a different person. Having the ability to take a moment to be by yourself after a relationship can be a very rewarding experience if you use the time purposefully and not looking for the next partner. Be sure to have your own hobbies, friends, and life goals. Make sure you develop healthy coping strategies for when you get stressed or upset. Be sure that you don't compare new potential partners to your ex-partner, and that you are able to identify pros and cons from your past relationships. This does not mean that you should have a checklist, but be sure to have clear goals for your dating life. Another hurdle to people taking time to themselves is the fear of possibly being alone forever. And then you end up wasting time not focusing on yourself and developing love for yourself. This also happens for people who are in toxic, negative, and unhealthy relationships. Instead of deciding not to continue the relationship, even when they know it's not beneficial to them as an individual or together, they continue down the path of what I call relationship destruction. I have seen relationship destruction happen in many different ways, whether it is they don't get along, but at least they know what to expect from each other versus being by themselves, or in essence of we have children together, so we will make it work for the kids. These reasons in and of itself are toxic, negative, and unhealthy approaches because the fear of being alone and the unknown. I will talk more about the dynamics of remaining in a relationship for the sake of the children or finances in future podcast episodes. But for this episode, let's now go deeper into what we could be doing if you find yourself not in a relationship or dating. So I bet you're asking yourself, how long should I wait between relationships and take time to myself? There is no right answer to this question, but it is important that you at least have these few things over a course of at least 3 months. The first step of creating and nourishing self-love is to have compassion for yourself. It is way too easy to be compassionate to others, but what ends up happening is we provide too much compassion to others and become super critical of ourselves. As you probably can tell, I'm probably a work in progress for this step myself. But it is important to work on recognizing and removing any negative self-talk. For every negative thought you have, I'm going to challenge you to replace it with 3 compassionate, positive self-talks or acknowledgments. The second step to creating and nourishing self-love is to be sure you enjoy time alone. As I spoke about earlier in this podcast, it is important that you learn how to be alone and be comfortable with the idea of having alone time. Alone time will give you time to yourself, your thoughts, self-reflection, and even leveling up and perfecting your own personal craft. Alone time can include enjoying a nice bubble bath with candles, a hot long shower, walking in the park, taking yourself out to a nice dinner, or even self-pleasure. We will definitely go more into self-intimacy in future episodes as well. The third step of creating and nourishing self-love is to be sure to create a list of positive characteristics you like about yourself and what others have shared with you. There used to be a show on TV, some may remember it, called Being Mary Jane. I love this show for this exact reason. Mary Jane will always have sticky notes or lipstick writings on the mirror with words of affirmation and positive self-reflection. This list of positive characteristics will be sure to increase self-confidence, self-appreciation, and self-love. The fourth step is to be sure to celebrate all accomplishments. When I talk about accomplishments, I don't mean only the big life accomplishments, but you have to create miniature milestones along your path to self-growth and love. As you create miniature milestones, you are also building miniature celebrations for accomplishments and successes that build up to the larger ones. Even creating and celebrating accomplishments on a daily basis is one sure way to incorporate celebrations in order to reward yourself. The fifth step is important. Now, I have a hard time with this step myself, but it's the ability to give yourself permission to just say no. If you are like me and are a people pleaser, I'm sorry, let me correct that. I am a recovering people pleaser, then you know how hard it is just to utter the word no. The ability to master the word no is also giving yourself permission to take time and think about decisions you make and if they are important to you before automatically saying yes to them. As I shared, I think I'm a recovering people pleaser, so I often find ways to say no in my own polite way. Step 6 is being mindful of how you spend your quality time with someone. If you are often drained after spending time with someone that is important, pay attention to it. This often creates extra exhaustion when it is not necessary. Be sure that the time you spend with others is energizing and supporting you to make you feel good and happy about yourself. Finally, step 7, be okay with asking for help when you need it. Throughout life, we all need help from time to time. When we are unable to or are unwilling to ask for help, you start to feel alone, challenged, and overwhelmed. Most of life challenges cannot be overcome alone, so it is important to develop a positive support system that reflects compassion, love, and appreciation. The ability to ask for help is important to taking care of ourselves. So as you listen to today's episode, be sure to take time to reflect on these 7 steps to figure out how much you have been practicing self-love. If you have already implemented these steps, then you are well on your way to being the model for self-love and putting yourself first before getting into a healthy relationship. This has been The Pleasure Spot with Dr. Dom. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts using the link posted in our bio to listen to the latest episodes and get your helpful tips, knowledge, and skills to answer your relationship and intimacy questions and more. I want to send a huge thank you to our sponsor, Paris, the Place of Pleasure, where pleasure can be reached in a million ways. You can find them at www.parisplaceofpleasure.com. If you have feedback on today's episode, email me at thepleasurespotwithdr.dom@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Join me again next time for more relationship tips, knowledge, and skills. This has been The Pleasure Spot with Dr. Dom. I'm your marriage, family, and sex therapist.